start by going through the synopsis. So, raised in a village in eastern Kenya, Judith is determined to escape her tumultuous childhood. At 29, the firstborn daughter of a retired cotton refinery worker in Mbere joins the ranks of Nairobi City Office executives, and imagine, she has succeeded in her mission. When she returns to the village for her mother's funeral and meets a mysterious stranger, she is completely taken by him. But Jeffari is a man on a mission. She is his mark, too busy trying to smash the glass ceiling to notice him leading her to the core of East Africa's largest terrorism network. Joan Thatiah gives a charming portrait of Kenya's corporate city life, the politics necessary to succeed in it, the struggles to find love and meaning, an immersive look onto the psychology of what leads to extremism. Guilty is an absorbing exploration of the yearning that draws many to extreme ideology. It plunges the reader into the inner lives of characters, impressing us in the choices they make. We are gripped by the low-building suspense and as the taut, unforgiving narrative unfolds to its brutal end. Joan Thatiah's novel is also a richly imagined and appealing portrait of the city life, and the indictment of our abandonment of rural areas. Guilty asks, what makes terrorists? An important question, given the painful experience of terrorism in Kenya and elsewhere in Africa. A work of remarkable psychological depth, a powerful read. Hello, bookworms. I know from the synopsis you're expecting a good. It's just clear, very clear that this is a good read, and it begins in 2017, 17th January, in Embu, in Mbere, Embu County. I think Mbere in Embu County is a place that is very close to my heart. Just to drift a bit, I studied in Embu County, and that's why I think it's also an attraction to do this book. There's something that drives you to look, either it's the title or something that just relates, but also the title Guilty is something that pulls you to want to read the book. So I hope you're excited to review with me this amazing book, and I hope we'll have so much to learn, so much to share from this, because reading should never be a solitary journey. So the book Guilty begins with our key character, Judith Irima Muni. She is in Embu County for her mother's burial, and she looks at the coffin as her mother is lowered into the grave, and she's dressed in a way that would not on typical occasion represent her mother. Her mother was a very calm person who didn't want to get any attention. She just wanted to lay low and didn't want to be identified. But it's very ironical, as we learn she's from the Luo community in Kenya, and if anyone knows of the Luo community, there are people who want to be seen, there are people who want to show off, they just don't want to, they're not just living. So it raises a lot of questions. Why would somebody from such a community want not to have themselves come out and be known by the society? So as she just looks at her mother's grave, how she's dressed, it makes her remember of who her mother is. And I think she remembers her child. She starts by remembering her childhood. First, her mother from the Luo community in Kenya, which is from the western side, let's say the Luo Nyanza, and the father who is from the eastern region. And when it comes to intermarriages from communities from these different areas, there will always be some friction in when people want to get married, and that is what Irima's parents experienced. However, they managed to pass through it and get married, but it came with consequences. One thing that happened is Irima's mother was disowned by her community for marrying a man from the eastern region, and she was never allowed to go back, and nobody from her home ever visited, and she also didn't get the chance to go. So let's say she decided, she left her life and everything and came back and decided to get married. But what was the cost of all this? Was it worth it? I think it's very sad that as we proceed and Irima narrates of her childhood, we realize that the sacrifice wasn't worth it, as during the first years of their marriage, it was all roses, it was all celebration. However, after some time, Irima's father's true colors began to show. He turned out to be cheating, he was irresponsible. I remember as she narrates in the book, she says one day when she came home, there was no food, and the mother wanted to go and mill the maize. Unfortunately, she did not have any money, as she was the housewife, but she tilled the land and everything. So she sent Irima to go get money from the father. It was so sad that Irima found her father seated with one of the ladies in the community who was regarded as somebody who would, the promiscuous women who will be in the village, and they were eating ugali and meat. However, back home, there was no food. This made Irima so angry as she looked up at her father, and when the lady noticed her, she ran back home. At this point, she went and talked to her mother. She was like questioning her mother, "Mom, why do you tolerate this?" And the mother, because she didn't want to, she just told her to keep quiet and told her she's a child and does not understand. I think this was an awakening to Irima, and she decided that she wanted a different life for herself. And it's good sometimes we don't choose where we are born, but we have a choice to where we want to be and where we want to go. So this is where Irima makes a choice. She decides this is not the kind of life that she wants for herself, and decides to work very hard so that she can proceed with her education. So still we are at Irima's mother's burial, and a very saddening thing is that her sisters from the Nyanza side come and they want to take over the burial organization and everything. And it starts bringing out a little bit of friction between the father and Irima's mother's sisters. However, Irima tells the father that let them run their way because we all want peace, and let us not create a lot of chaos during this time, and let mommy be laid to rest peacefully. So the father, after a lot of talking and a lot of discussion, she allows the sisters to run the burial, and thus everything is done. So Irima remembers, I think she sits down and she recalls of her life in the village. She remembers her friend Kanini. Kanini got pregnant while they were after primary school, and she didn't manage to go back to go to high school. And she now her life changed. Irima remembers visiting her and talking to her after high school and telling her all the amazing things about high school. But as time went by, she got her second child, and they no longer had things in common. So their friendship drifted. Irima recalls her high school, her life, her mother's life, and these were among the things that motivated her to work really hard, and she did well and proceeded to go to the university. In the university, I think education in reality allows us to grow and meet different people. She meets Winkate, who they were from the same village, and they become friends, but she was from a well-off family, and it even increases her interaction. They both had very big dreams. They wanted to be successful, and Irima stayed focused on her goal. As they proceeded, Winkate got a guy, got married, and got kids, and she took a position as an assistant. However, Irima's dream and desire to grow in the corporate world and not to go back to her village pushed her and motivated her to work extra hard towards achieving her goals. And in the long run, she managed to achieve her goals, and she became an editor. So after a while, and we're still at her burial, these are things that she remembers as she's back home. While they're still at the burial site, after her mother's burial, she meets a stranger, Jafari, and I'll tell you more about Jafari as we proceed. But Irima's decision, after the burial, she stays for a while and decides this is not the place for her, and decides to go back to her home in South Sea. When she heads back home, she decides she's really depressed. She's thinking she lost her mother. Once in a while, she tries calling her mother's phone. Her mother's phone is with her. It rings and nobody answers, and she cannot still fathom how this happened. And another thing, a point to just bring it out, among what was the cause of death for Irima's mother, she was infected with HIV, and with the kind of woman she is, she was a good woman who stayed home, who wanted to maintain face and wanted people to think she was happy. However, her husband was unfaithful. He kept cheating on her. He never treated her right, and even at the point of her death, she didn't want people to know that she was sick and needed help, and decided to cover it all to maintain face. It still brings, I think that's why this is relatable. I think it's a problem in society where women, because of the circumstances that they go through, are forced to live a certain kind of life to try and maintain face. But in the long run, is it worth it? Why suffer at the expense of something that is not giving you happiness? I believe life is very short, and don't waste it crying or on a bad day or on a bad guy or on a bad girl, or just choose happiness. Look for where your happiness lies and pick that and go with it. Because, and it's okay to walk out, it's okay to move. If something is not working for you, why should it be the cause of your death and there's something we have done about it? I think that's why I'm saying in everything, just choose your happiness. In the long run, you're the person who matters most in your life. And so Irima, the life of her mother was just an awakening for her to decide that that's not the kind of life she wanted for herself. After a while, and I think after all this, Irima decides one day she was just looking for hope. She goes to church. However, she doesn't manage to see the priest. She goes back home. She just eats a lot of junk and stays seated at home. But one day she looks at it and decides, this is not the kind of life I want to live. She decides to wake up and decides she's going to go back to work. And even before she goes back to work, a call comes in. Her manager will be taking a sabbatical leave, and she will be required. She was asked by her boss if she was willing to take up the position and hold him before the boss comes back. And Irima, wanting to go in the corporate ladder, she took it up very fast and was ready to pick it up and go with it. So she goes back to the office. Her friends check on her. She was not very close. She had just one friend who checked on her, and even during the burial and the whole process, the person kept checking on her. He asks her if she's okay, if she will still want this. She's like, we can still hold it on for you because we know whatever you're going through. But Irima says she's okay, and because she wants to take up this big challenge, she has to show up. So she's ready to bring all this up. Now, a brief introduction of the guy that Irima met at the burial, Jafari. Jafari is a guy from the coastal region. He comes from a very poor family. So Jafari finished. He was a very bright boy. He finished his Form 4, but after finishing his Form 4, as he waited for his results, he got a job from a guy called Mapesa. It involved these large trucks. He wasn't a driver, but he was an assistant to a driver. So it was good money, which he would help his mother with some expenses because they're from a very poor background, and he had siblings, so he had to assist the mother to at least bring food to the table and make things a bit easy for her as he was growing up. During this process, something happened. He had gone for driving. He had gotten his driving license one day, and the driver that they used to work with once in a while would give him the car to drive. So one time they were driving the car, and an accident occurs. So Jafari hits a very small girl who is walking on the road. What is the next step? You know, when it's a mob, first in the Kenyan context, it's going to be a fight. So Jafari, the driver tells Jafari they have to run and ensure that they cannot get a hold of them, because at that point nobody is in the right senses and all they want to do is kill. So they run, but Jafari goes to the police station and submits it and confesses of what happened. So he's in the cell for some time. He sees different people. The environment is not very conducive. He just wants to sit alone and doesn't want to talk. They ask what he did. He just says it was careless driving, because you know, in a prison or cell setup, any harm done to children, it causes you, like, your life will be hell in prison or in a cell. So he stays. He withholds that because he has seen what happens. So Jafari, in the process, after some time he's taken to remand. In remand, he meets somebody. In remand, he meets Abu Bakr Rashid. He tries to explain to him different concepts of society, and Jafari is really impressed because he sees like somebody who is thinking totally different, and he intrigues his mind. After some time, he's released. Jafari stays back, but he tells Jafari anytime he's free, he can visit at the mosque. So after some time, it's found out that the girl that was hit was not okay, and that she should have not been loitering around alone. So Jafari is freed. After that, he keeps visiting Abu Bakr Rashid in the mosque. They become friends. He learns a few ideologies, and I think it influences his thinking. So the time comes where he needs to report to school, to the university. His results are out. He scored an A. He has been invited to the university. The mom gives advice and tells him to work really hard as he goes there, remain responsible. As as he does this, something unexpected happens. Instead of taking the bus to school, Jafari boards a car that takes them to the border of Kenya and Somalia. And I think this raises a bit of questions and just gives you a context on what is happening. He goes there, he stays there for a while, he learns a few things. It's not easy, it's a new thing. But Jafari is like, he wants to change the world, he wants to change how people do things. And that's how he is initiated into this radical kind of movement. So this is where Jafari also comes in. This is where Jafari, now we have an understanding of who Jafari is, and Irima, who is an editor. Their interaction again comes up way ahead. Jafari, so we have Irima who has reverted back to work. Jafari still lives in South Sea, but he works in a mechanical area. He works in mechanics in industrial area, and that's where he gets his money. And he's very careful because he doesn't interact so much with girls. He previously, when he was in Mombasa, he had a girlfriend. However, because of this decision, he made a choice to leave her behind and tell her not to wait for her. So Jafari loved this lady so much that it hurt him to let go of her. But he also he quotes a few girls so that he can maintain eye, because in the society there are different types, and if you're seeing maybe you're not interested in women, it raises a lot of questions. So Jafari is working, and one time he receives a call as he's working. He's told that they need more money. He tries to get whatever he has, but for them to show commitment, he has to show that he can finance and get money to run this radical movement and bring change. I think for now, I want us to hold it there. As we proceed in our next review, I will give you an update on the relationship, how the relationship between Irima and Jafari builds up. We're doing a brief introduction of the whole story. What happens next? How does the relationship turn out? What is the impact of this radicalist movement? And what are the effects? And another thing to point, there's a story that Irima is really pushing about a political leader, and she's stopped because of the nature of the story. So we want to see how these things unfold, and Irima's determination to grow the corporate ladder, and at what cost will all this come. So my dear readers, stay tuned for our next review of Guilty. When you hear Guilty, when you hear a good title, it guides you through what is expected. Thank you so much. Remember, reading should never be a solitary journey. Thank you so much. Goodbye. Peace. See you in our next review next Wednesday, same place, same time, because reading should never be a solitary journey. Hey, we are reading a book from the Eastern region, and I'm going like solitary journey. Welcome. See you next time. See you in our next review, because reading should never be a solitary journey. The Relatable Reader Podcast with me, Afandi. Ciao.